I picked 3 random creators on Instagram to roast their content in the nicest way possible. And so that's what I'm gonna do for you live today on this video. Now, a quick disclaimer, this video idea completely stolen from James Smith. If by some very, very small chance, James, you end up watching this video, I don't think you will, but if you end up seeing this video, yes, I directly stole this video idea from you. And so let's get into it. If you want your content roasted in the nicest way possible, I will put a link down below for you to submit your Instagram username, and I will try my best to get to yours. But the plan is to do, give or take, one of these videos every few weeks. I'm not going to commit to how often I do it, but I randomly pick names. Okay, and so put your name in. You may or may not get picked, but hopefully you find these videos valuable nonetheless. And so let's get into creator number 1. And so let's have a look at Marinette. So the first thing I'm going to go through is your bio. And by the way, I've already made some notes, so hopefully make this video run a bit smoother. So let's go through your bio first and foremost. Now the bio, the first part, decode and recalibrate mind, body, and energy, fine, no issues there. The rest of it, again, it's a little bit wishy-washy, doesn't really mean anything. So what I would say is we need to have a statement that essentially says, so you can, right? So you would say, I decode and recalibrate your mind, body, and energy so you can do A, B, and C, right? Because otherwise, especially with this type of niche, this type of industry, you kind of present what you're teaching as a little bit unreachable. It's a little bit unobtainable. People don't quite get it. And when someone doesn't quite get it, they can't trust it. And of course, when they can't trust something, they're never going to buy it, right? And so it needs to be very, very clear. I help you do these amazing, fancy things so you can do these real, tangible outcomes that right now you can't do. So that would be the first thing, is just to slightly change and shift that bio. Otherwise, let's get into the content, which is the main stuff I wanted to cover. So the first thing I was going to mention with your content is your carousels. I think you've more recently started to do. It's these ones with the black covers. Now, what I would say is the carousels don't match the vibe of kind of what you're about or what your other content shows. And I think that as a stranger who sees your content, imagine they see it on the Explore page or it just randomly pops up, they're not going to get any understanding or any sort of vibe or feeling as to what it is you're about or what your niche or industry is by a carousel that has a black background, right? Now it's a little bit different for, say, for me, if I had done that, because it's more about business, it's just more factual and whatnot. But for you, it's different. There is a vibe, there's a clear feeling to your other content that just is very clearly lacking from the carousels. And so whether you just add visuals that you are already using as your background photos in the carousels, it could be as simple as that. You could go down a route of like more fancy design and graphics, but I don't think that's needed. I think just use the images you have already. That already tells a story more so than just kind of that kind of plain black background. It's a real simple thing, but you'll just get the wrong people clicking onto your content and the right people not clicking onto your content just by the visual that people see and that gut feeling that they get, right? And so you're simply missing out on some potentially good traffic just by fixing the visuals. So that's number 1. Now, your photos and videos do a good job of that. I've mentioned that. Third thing, the specificity in your content could be better. And so you mentioned things, and I'll just point out a few things. So let's go with this one. Space between your collarbones holds every emotion you never gave yourself permission to feel. Cool, not a problem with that. My problem lies in this text lower down, where it says when this space is blocked, and then it sort of lists out kind of symptoms, let's say, of what people will experience. But although I mention it as symptoms, I wouldn't class those as symptoms. They're problems. And the reason I say they're problems is because they have a label, right? And so a problem has a label. And when something has a label, the issue you have, people can either agree or disagree, right? They even already know they have that problem, right? And they've been diagnosed with something, or whatever it might be. They know they've got a problem, or they don't know they've got a problem. And the issue with these types of things is that someone can have anxiety and not realize they have it. And I would argue that Majority of people who have anxiety don't know they have anxiety, right? And so emotional suppression, majority of people who have emotional suppression just think that's them. They don't realize they have an issue of emotional suppression. And so what you want to do instead is point to the tangible, to the real life symptoms. And what that means is, what are like the tangible examples, the tangible, real lived experiences that someone is having on a daily basis. And I mean like micro moments that they experience in their day. That of course mean that they must have anxiety, they must have emotional suppression. And so with this type of post, you're much better off just picking one of those bullet points, but being very, very specific with it. So for example, you might say something like, I don't know, you just found out that your, I don't know, you just found out that your, someone in your family has died and you didn't cry, you know, and this isn't the first time. You know, every time someone, you have lost someone around you, you've never cried, you've always, you know, held it together for the sake of people around you, right? And you, below that will say, that's not a sign of you being strong, that's a sign of you suppressing your emotions. This is why. And then you introduce the collarbone sort of idea. And so look, my example might not be the best, but it's just to try to give you a better idea on actually being hyper specific about symptoms people have, as opposed to simply using a label. And that's the same with other examples of your content that you can improve on. I think if you change that, you'll see a massive change overall in the impact of your content. Now the final thoughts, or kind of final point, is that the type of work you do, I know is not for a beginner, right? So someone who has never worked on themselves, personal development, whatever it might be, this stuff's going straight over their head. And so what you have to account for then in your content is trying to target someone who has already done stuff, who's already tried stuff. And in some of the content you do mention it. I can't remember exactly which ones it was, but you do kind of mention it briefly in some content. Oh, I think it was this example maybe. Here you go, you say here, right, you've done everything right. The diets, the supplements, the meditation. So you kind of mention stuff, but again, it's not specific. You know, so rather than saying the diets, it's say what diet. You've tried keto, right? Instead of saying supplements, what supplements? You've tried ashwagandha, you've tried, I don't know, vitamin D or whatever else it is that people have tried, right, for certain things. Be specific, because when you can literally point out exactly what people have done already, the more likely they see themselves in your content. Of course, they're more likely then to want to hear more about what it is you have to say. And so you have to make sure you're bringing what you do closer to the reality of what people are currently going through. And so remember that when you're then speaking about what you do, try to match up what you teach with analogies on things they already understand. Because if you just use maybe a name or a term of like a technique you use, again, straight over people's heads. So link it to an analogy or link it to a procedure or to a method, something they already know about, that they can then say, oh, okay, well, this is something new, but I understand the principles and how it works because of the analogy that you use, okay? So again, it's make it more specific, bring it closer to people's reality, and then use terms, stories, examples, analogies that people can then point back to help them understand the concepts you're trying to teach. Because of course, what you're teaching is not beginner stuff, right? You know, so you need to account for that and make it a bit more easier to understand for the average person, so to speak. Okay, but that's the final thought. Actually, no, one more thing: clear before and after visuals would make the page 10 times better. So any visuals you can get of either yourself before going through this transformation versus after, any clients you've helped. And I know that visuals won't always be available to use for certain things, but I'm sure there is visuals you can use. And I think, again, for the average person looking at this, words aren't enough. You need to bring it to reality, and reality typically is visual. And if someone can see before this work and someone's like old and decrepit after the work, they're youthful and look amazing. It's like that is real living proof, undeniable proof that what you teach has an impact on someone. And again, that's be a massive selling point compared to just using the language trying to describe it. Great. Okay, I've got to move on because I'm low on time here. So next page was Nikita, Conquer with Nikita. So your page, the bio, not really any real big issues. I think you can remove the word ambitious. You just don't need it, right? When you're targeting ambitious women, it's going to be clear from your content who you're targeting already. So you don't really need to mention it again here. It serves no purpose in terms of SEO, even people connecting with the page. It doesn't do anything for you. Just simply remove helping ambitious and just have it as women, win titles, personal brand, blah, 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 right? Save yourself space and you can add something else in elsewhere. Again, straight to the content. Overall, content's good. What I would say, however, is you mentioned obviously you're a pageant coach. I would try to get, as often as possible, visuals of pageants in your content, because it tends to be that when you do have visuals of pageants in your content, usually it performs better than average, right? And so I think that's a little bit of proof, a little bit of evidence you need to follow more. And so when you're making content and you're just simply filming, if it's at home or wherever it might be, it serves a purpose. But again, I think the visuals can tell a story much better and much quicker than you can tell it. And so the more often you can use visuals of pageants, whether it's your own visuals or even taken from elsewhere, it doesn't matter. Just use that, because then when you get women who see your content and without them looking at a keyword, they can visually see something that they are interested in or something they already do. Again, it's just a tiny, tiny little detail that will just get more of the right people clicking on the content, right? If you get more people clicking on, more of the right people clicking on the content, your content performs better without making any other changes, right? And it might be a 1% difference, but that compounds obviously over time. So visuals is so important here for you as well. The second point is, what are your beliefs around pageants? One thing that I'm not clear on here is exactly, your particular way of teaching or what it is you teach, the methods. How is that different to what other people do? And I can't see it. I'm not saying it's not in the content, but I'm saying from a bird's eye view of looking at the page, it's not clear. So I'll give you examples. When you see me post content and I say funnels are dead, right? Or stop posting problem awareness content, stuff like that. It's quite like negative hooks, and that's on purpose. But I do that to show people that I have a clear opinion, a very clear idea on how something should or shouldn't be done. And so whatever part of the process it is within pageants that you teach, or again, that you have certain ideas about, make that clear. And so what I'd recommend is write down, let's say 4 or 5 key beliefs you have on pageants and how women should go about taking part in them, and try to start making content, all of your content, about at least one of those beliefs in some way. The delivery of the content doesn't necessarily change, but it has to then be clear in the content what that belief is you're trying to reinforce, okay? Because beliefs and shifting beliefs, that is the foundation of changing someone's behavior, okay? When you change someone's beliefs, you change their attitude, which is how they feel towards something. When you change someone's attitude, you then change their behavior, which is then the actions they take. And so you're not going to get more clients if you're not shifting people's beliefs, okay? And that's not just for you, that's for everyone. That's an important thing to, again, to really consider. You do have a post which is this one here, which is done really well. Again, visual of a pageant. This is more belief shifting. 3 myths about pageants you need to stop believing. And again, it's no surprise, actually, based on engagement, it's one of your best performing posts. Okay, so 2 things I've mentioned: visuals of pageants and speak to beliefs you have or hold about pageants themselves. And again, you'll attract more attention that way. And so that's the proof there. You need to do more of this kind of stuff. And by all means, reuse video clips. There's no issue there of reusing clips or photos or even ideas that have done well in the past. That's kind of the whole idea here. So there's that. The 4th point I'd mention is that a lot of your content feels very informational, right? And so it's like 3 myths, or it's like tips, 5 things no one prepares for, most important steps, 3 things that happen, 3 habits, 5 simple steps. This content works. It's savable. It can sometimes be shareable. Again, it can get people to come back to the content, but it positions you as someone who has value, but not necessarily someone who I should buy from. Now, obviously, the first step in that is the beliefs, which I've just mentioned. If you do more of that stuff, you position yourself more as someone to buy from because you have a different way of thinking compared to someone else. But I need to see more storytelling. I need to see more rawness in your content. Again, I only had a brief look through, so I can't say for certain, but also I'm having a brief look. That's what a stranger would do, right? Someone who doesn't follow you already is not going to spend an hour going through all of your content to decide whether they want to follow you or not, right? People decide to follow you based on a gut feeling. They decide after clicking through a handful of pieces of content. They don't do the research to figure that out. So I need to know if I just was to click on 5 at maximum random pieces of content and go through all of them, I need to hear about your story. I need to hear about why you are the authority. I need to hear about your mistakes, about the lessons, about the experiences that you've been through, about people you've helped. And when you don't have that in your content, again, you present yourself as an authority somewhat because of the value. You present yourself as someone who is useful to follow. But again, I would never buy because I can't see myself in you. I can't see my journey, my story in what you've done, in what you've been through, in the people you've helped. And that is such a core component of you getting more clients, is fixing that. And so it's not just sharing the good stuff, but also sharing the bad stuff. But we need the journey in there somehow. And so also put it somewhere at the top of your page, like a start here, like get to know me type of post. Your entire journey, it needs to be there. Great. The final point, do some breakdown videos. Now you see these all the time in the marketing space. You get people do like a breakdown of like, here's the breakdown on Alex Hormozi's 100 million launch or Hormozi's marketing machine. Here's how he does it. And I think that type of content actually could work really well for you. Just doing the type of content where you're saying, here is Miss Universe 2024. Here's what worked. Here's why she won. Here's what you can learn from it. Or here is, the contestants who place in the bottom 10 of Miss Universe. Here's why. Here's the breakdown. Here's what they could have done better for next time. However you want to frame it, obviously it's up to you. But again, if you can just be someone who can commentate, someone who can observe and give feedback, essentially what I'm doing right now, it's a way to give value without directly like teaching, if that makes sense. Because again, if you can only commentate, you can only give an opinion on something when you're an expert in it, right? At least that's a perception. Whether you are an expert or not an expert isn't the point. When someone sees a video of you giving an opinion on something, they have to assume immediately you have some prior knowledge or authority in that space. Otherwise, you would not be able to give an opinion on it, right? And so that type of content doesn't have to be often. It could be once a week, every other week or so. But I think that would be a great way to give an insight into how you think, how you teach, and also the things that you point out and the little details that perhaps you noticed that another coach or someone else might not notice that you mention in the breakdown videos. And that's why they're powerful, but not too often, like I said. Okay, great. So moving on to our final example. Online freedom hackers. So a few things here. So first thing I say is ditch the cover images. So on all of your reels, videos and so on, these sort of like edited graphic design cover images, just get rid of them. And the reason I say it is because when I land on your page, again as a stranger, I want to have the feeling of freedom, right? You've got this really good post about 5 freedoms, and it's like whatever those 5 freedoms are, ask yourself, what is the visual representation of those 5 freedoms? And then try and put that into your content. Because again, when someone lands on your page, if we don't look at the bio, we have no idea what you're talking about, what's the first impression? And for me, I would think it's like a graphic design page. I would think it's a branding page of some kind. And that's, again, the design is not bad. Again, I'm not knocking the design. The designs are good, but I think they're too overly designed actually for what it is you're about and what it is you're trying to share and what it is you're trying to teach. And so I want that feeling when I land on your page of freedom. And I can just think of people that I follow or that I've seen before, and you'll see videos of them like they're on the beach with their kids, they're running, they're playing, they're in the plane, they're on a Jeep driving, they're getting dirty in the bars, whatever it might be, right? It's like they're having all of this fun, and they're showing the reality of freedom. And I think that's all you need to do with these cover images, because when you click on the video, on some of them anyway, you know, stuff like this, that's kind of what I mean. It's like just literally show yourself out and about doing things, but I want to see more freedom. So less filming indoors, because again, if you're talking about freedom, but in every video, I don't know, it's not every video, but if we assume that every video was you indoors filming, talking about freedom, again, it's like there's a subconscious disconnect there between talking about freedom, but then being stuck indoors all the time. And so that's like, for me, example, what I have consciously tried to start filming stuff when I'm out on a dog walk or when I'm out playing golf, because part of my brand is a little bit about freedom, and I want to make sure people don't just see me indoors in my office all the time filming content, because that's not freedom, right? So just be careful of that. The second point, show more clips of you obviously in the videos. So don't do this. So where you've got clips of you traveling, like have you in the videos. So any video where you're not in it, don't use it, because again, it doesn't serve a purpose. I'd rather see you in a video traveling out and about. And again, it's not that you don't have these on the page, you do, but there's too many of these ones where there's not a person, there's no context, right? So we don't want that. So try and show more of yourselves out and about doing things. And if you need to film some new content and kind of build up that library of kind of stock B-roll that you can use, then go ahead and do that and plan things out. But otherwise, again, I want to know the people behind the brand. I want to see the coaches before I buy into the coaching. And I think that doesn't serve you at all, right? So again, these are only like little details. We're talking visuals here. It's not like a massive shift, but it does have a big impact on how people perceive the brand, right? Anyway, third point, I want you to ask yourselves, who or what is the opposite of freedom? And obviously, especially your definition of freedom. What's the opposite of that? Essentially, who is the enemy? And so, for example, in my content, I sometimes refer to Alex Hormozy, right? And how he is like, hustle, 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 work hard every day, don't stop, 12 hours a day, whatever it might be. And so I reference him because he is a version of like hustle. So if I am anti-hustle, he is a version of hustle that I am fighting against, that I am trying not to be, that I am trying to build a business in the opposite way that he would teach it. But more importantly, he is someone that everyone that I target pretty much knows, right? And so ask yourself, number one, who is the enemy with these different types of freedoms, or just overall, who or what is the enemy? And then ask yourself, is that enemy well known enough that you can use essentially their authority, their attention in your own content to get people to notice you more, right? And so I would be clipping videos of Hormozy, Gary Vee, whoever it might be, right? But literally just taking clips of them, doing a green screen response, or whatever it might be, and just giving your opinion on what you think instead, or just referencing them, or finding terms of like hustle or bro scaling, whatever it is, the terms, the language that people will use when it comes to hustle, to not having freedom. Use those in your content. Say it literally out loud, write it in the content, put it into the captions. Again, that's going to attract people who know what that stuff means, and again, will attract the right people just simply based on relevance, right, more than anything else. So there's that point. Final 2 points. I assume your parents, I think based on some of the content, if I'm wrong, then I'm sorry, you just have to take this advice as it comes. But try and make some more content about how the idea of freedom, and again, your 5 freedoms, how does that impact then being a parent? How does it impact your teaching style, your parenting style? Do the kids go to school? Do they not go to school? Are they homeschooled? Do you feed them regular food from the grocery store? Do you feed them only organic produce that you guys plant yourself? Or you see what I'm saying? And so sometimes you can talk slightly directly outside of your niche, but it attracts the type of people you're looking for. And so rather than you going wide in terms of saying how to make money online, right? Because you could do that, but you're going to attract the wrong people. Going wider would actually look like, here's how we raise our children, with our online business or something, you know, or like 5 unorthodox ways we raise our children with a freedom first business. However you want to frame it. But that's what I mean. So if you are parents, you're more likely then going to attract other parents anyway. And so young guys, young girls are less likely to resonate with the content regardless. So you might as well optimize for the people more likely to resonate who are parents. And so share more of that stuff. It's going to be divisive. It's meant to be divisive because people can have different opinions on parenting and raising kids and all of that kind of stuff. But that's the point. You want to generate conversation, get attention, and show your position, because then people see this. The people who are in the 9 to 5, they're in the grind, they don't want to be in that anymore. They're raising their kids, sending their kids off to school, only seeing them for an hour a day, and they're like, damn, it's like, this is exactly the life I want. This is exactly the parent that I want to be. How can I do it? And that's when they then click on the lead magnets, the VSL, to find out more about the program off the back of that content, okay? And so more of that will be massively, massively powerful. Final point is the before and after. So I'm not clear, and I've not gone that far down your page, but I shouldn't need to. I'm not clear on the before and after. You know, I'm pretty sure you mentioned it in some content here, right? You know, we tried everything, writing books, healing work. But again, I feel like that type of post needs to be a video, right? Or at least a carousel with more images to try to visually tell the story. And again, it should also show up much more often in the rest of your content. I need to click on, like I said, 5 of those posts, and in 5 of those posts, at least 1 or 2 reference your story, reference kind of where you were to where you are now. Again, otherwise people will just take it to surface level and they won't connect with it. They need a story, they need examples to connect to, and right now they don't have that. And for me to trust you and to invest in you, I need to know that you have come from a place similar to me, right? I would never invest with someone who has come from royalty because I'm not from royalty. So I would rather invest in someone who has the same outcome but has come from an average working class family than I would someone who has a better outcome but comes from royalty, right? It's like the journey is the selling point. It's not the outcome. It's not where you are now. And so that contrast of where you started, what you've been through, what you've done, what you fixed, and where you are now, it's that journey, that contrast. That's what sells, right? If you speak too much about outcomes and where you are right now, again, there's too much of a disconnect because the people you're selling to, they're too far away from that, right? It's unrealistic, or they just can't see themselves getting there yet. They can't see themselves in you, in your story. And so share more about the journey, and yeah, you'll get more leads and get more clients from that. And so that's it, guys. Hopefully that was useful. Obviously for the free volunteers, I appreciate you guys putting your names forward. If you're watching this video and you want your chance of being featured on the channel and me to politely roast your content, again, there'll be a link down below for you to put your name in and for you to potentially be picked. I just can't get to everyone because of how many people apply. But put your name in and hopefully you'll get picked on the next video that I do. Otherwise, hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of these types of videos, do let me know, because if no one likes these videos, I just won't keep doing them. So it would be good to get some feedback. If you like the video, just pop into the comments below, or feel free to message me directly. But yeah, appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next one.